I work as an ear, nose and throat consultant, and obviously it's a very high-risk position because our job is to be up in people's noses, isn't it? It must have been about 4 weeks ago I was exposed to a patient who was COVID positive, and about 3 days later I started to come down with a very high temperature and a cough and very, very extreme muscle pains and tiredness. So I decided to self-isolate. I informed work what was going on, and luckily, because I live alone, or my son was not with me, he was away with his sister, I was able to self-isolate, which I did. But by the 7th day or so, the temperature had come down and I was feeling a little bit better.
And during this time that you went through it, as you said, it was, very hard for the 3 weeks. What did you do for yourself in order to, there's no cure, but in order to treat yourself or mitigate the effects of the COVID-19?
So to start off with, because I work in a high-risk specialty, I made sure that I really boosted my immunity, and I started taking vitamin C. 2 grams a day, which is quite a high dose, but I knew that I needed to ramp up my immunity right from the beginning. So I was doing that. I also took paracetamol for the fever. I did a lot of chest respiratory exercises, breathing in and out in order to expand my lungs, because I know that the COVID virus affects the lungs and causes inflammation. And I didn't want to get into the position where the inflammation would actually stop me from breathing.
Something you said, Dr. Morgan, is also very interesting and important. And when you said that you were self-isolating, you went into quarantine, but you were living alone. How did that affect you, especially considering I've heard of the fatigue, people losing their appetite, yet you need to eat in order to build your strength to fight this? Was that a difficult time for you?
Yes, it was. It was difficult in the sense that because I was on my own, I had to motivate myself in the sense that I was physically alone, but morally I was not. My family brought food and left on the doorstep. That's my brother and my friends. I also am very active within the association. I'm actually the president of the Association of Cameroon Doctors in the UK. And one other thing that really kept me going was that we were doing videos and educational material, as well as sorting out a fundraising drive to help our colleagues back in Cameroon to obtain personal protective equipment, which is sorely lacking. So that was a great motivation for me. Once the temperature went down, I would get up, I'll have a shower, and do a video to motivate my colleagues back in Cameroon to face the COVID-19, as well as, talk with my other colleagues.
The country has now 1,621 cases. Are you worried about what kind of supplies they may or may not have in fighting COVID-19 back in Cameroon?
I am worried. Everybody is worried. Even here in England, we've been worried. All across the world, people have been concerned about the lack of PPE for medical personnel. As we all know, prevention of COVID-19 is better than cure, because although we can have supportive measures and 80% of people like myself will have a mild to moderate dose and get better, the problem is if they get very ill and need supportive treatment, they need ventilators, which are sorely lacking in Cameroon. So we do need to protect our medical personnel, which is why we are on this very, very feverish drive to raise funds, get the PPE for them and send across.